So what are the 14 required Supreme Court cases you need to know for the AP GoPo exam, the Government and Politics exam? This is coming once again from the course exam description. And as you look at these Supreme Court cases or SCOTUS, these are some ideas that you'll want to know more about, like the facts, the relevant events to the case, the issue, a legal or constitutional question the court considers in a case, holding, the court's response to the issue, reasoning, the court's explanation, decision, the outcome of the case, and opinion, and analysis of the court's decision. So what are the Big 14? The Big 14 include Marbury versus Madison, 1803. In deciding this case about judicial appointments, the court establishes the principle of judicial review, empowering the Supreme Court to declare an act of the legislative or executive branch unconstitutional. McCulloch versus Maryland, 1819. In deciding this case about a national bank and state taxes, the court establishes supremacy of the U.S. Constitution and federal laws over state laws. Chinnock versus the United States, 1919. Speech creating a clear and present danger was not protected by the First Amendment and could be limited. Brown versus Board of Education, 1954. Race-based school segregation violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Baker versus Carr in 1962. This case held that redistricting did not raise political questions, allowing federal courts to hear other cases that challenging redistricting plans may violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Engel versus Vitale, 1962. School sponsorship of religious activities violates the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Gideon versus Wainwright, 1963. In this case, the Sixth Amendment's right to an attorney extends procedural due process protections to felony defendants in state courts. Tinker versus Des Moines, Independent Community Schools District, 1969. A prohibition against public school students wearing black arms in school to protest the Vietnam War violated the students' freedom of speech protections in the First Amendment. New York Times Company versus the United States, 1971. This case bolstered the freedom of the press protections of the First Amendment, establishing a heavy presumption against prior restraint, even in cases involving national security. Wisconsin versus Yoder, 1972. Compelling Amish students to attend school past the 8th grade violates the Free Exercise Clause of the First Amendment. Shaw versus Reno in 1993. Under the 14th Amendment Equal Protection Clause, minority districts created under the Voting Act of 1965 may be constitutionally challenged by voters if race is the only factor used in creating the district. United States versus Lopez in 1995. Congress exceeded its power under the Commerce Clause when it made possession of a gun in a school zone a federal crime. McDonald versus Chicago in 2010. The Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms for self-defense is applicable to the states. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010. Political spending by corporations, associations, and labor unions is a form of protected speech under the First Amendment. So what are the Big 14? These are the Big 14 for the GoPo course.